Hello, true duelists. My name is Craig Fee, and welcome to the New Card Report, the video series I make on the side of the update. It's not the update, it's completely different, and not at all has something to do with the timing out of the regular update, okay? Sometimes a week. Sometimes. This week features more reveals from Duelist Nexus, giving more support for the Manadome archetype, as well as Monarch Support? Don't tell Lithium. I'm kidding. He's the one who made it. Let's take a look in this new card report. Now, before I kick this off, I'm going to take the time to state that Manadome is an archetype that has a number of pieces of support that mention monsters with specifically 1500 attack and 2100 defense. And so for the rest of this video, I will refer to that stat line as the Zenmain stats, because Zenmains is of course a part of the Manadome archetype whether or not it wants to be. First up is Manadome Trid, just one letter off of being a fantastic reference for me to fit into this video. Just kidding, I'm going to force it into this video. I don't care. Investment, let's go! Flawless. A level 2 fire type fairy type tuner, what are attributes, with 0 attack and 1500 defense. If you control a Vizaz Starfrost or a monster with Zenmain stats, you can special summon this card from your hand, and if it's destroyed by battle or effect, it can summon any Manadome tuner from your deck. The float is a once per turn effect that should shock nobody, but more importantly, the tiny man in the bubble has a head the size of his house. Now, I don't believe in perspective, I instead state what I believe to be true and don't understand the third dimension, I only understand 2. So, you can't tell me anything different. That man's head is far too big to fit in the building, in the bubble in which he resides, and that's just a fact. As for the actual card itself, well, it's a tuner that can float into any tuner, so I'm gonna go ahead and guess that it's pretty solid. Veda Carantha? Hope I read that right, is a level 8 Dark Warrior with 2500 attack and 2100 defense. A little bit stronger than those Zenmain stats. And if a card on the field is destroyed by a card effect while you control Vizaz Starfrost, you can summon this guy from your hand and add 1 Clear New World from your deck or graveyard to your hand. Plus, if a monster you control is destroyed by card or effect, you can target and destroy 1 monster the opponent controls to have this card gain attack equal to that targeted opponent's monster's attack for the rest of the turn, so big, it gets big. It can't summon itself from the hand, and with Vizaz on your board, it's a level 8 body, which could help this deck get into its level 10 synchros? Copium? Hardcore Copium. Look, I'm not going to say this card is bad, but I will say that it's trying to be a boss monster of sorts all on its own in a deck that can access synchro monsters with the greatest of ease, so it's sure as shit unnecessary. As for the card that it searches, it's like a weird transmodify, but in reverse. Don't worry about it. Clear New World, Clear New Bad. Let's move on to the next card. Vizaz Amritira is a new level 8 warrior synchro tuner for the deck, needing any 1 or more tuners and 1 light monster for its synchro materials, which is pretty damn neat, or at least different. Different's good, right? That's what people say about formats. Its name becomes Starfrost while it is on the field, and it's got 2 effects. If synchro summoned, it can add 1 spell or trap that mentions Vizaz Starfrost from deck to hand, and during the main phase, it can pop a monster you control to give all synchros that you currently control 800 attack. The attack buff is almost entirely useless, but as a level 8 stepping stone synchro that also searches out most of the cards that Manadome can use, the first effect is pretty damn good. The exact opposite of the second effect with the attack boost. In fact, it's truly the duality of man represented in 1 card. Useless and useful. It's playable for that reason alone, of course, and it's got the anime boy with a big sword on it, which is a trope as tired as it is popular, so good on Konami for implementing that into another card. That I can't hate, that's just smart. People are gonna like that shit. We all know they do. Up next is a new spell card for the deck, The World as One, named after Elon Musk's dream about a utopian society where everyone gives him $8 for fucking Twitter of all things. What a fucking joke. Clearly because he just really hopes that no one values their dollar, which I encourage you to do, to value your dollar and not pay for Twitter, but well, I'm not your dad, you can do whatever the fuck you want, just know I will call you stupid for it. On activation, you can do one of two things, either special summon one monster with Zen main stats from your graveyard, or you can shuffle 5 monsters from anywhere amongst your face-up field, banished pile, or graveyard into your deck, just as long as you shuffle 1 Visaz Starfrost and 4 monsters with Zen main stats. And if you do that, you can then special summon 1 Visaz Synchro monster from your extra deck, and that summon is treated as a Synchro summon. So what we are looking at here is a very niche monster reborn, or an even more niche Avarice of sorts, but instead of drawing, you summon out a Synchro monster that you would probably want to first summon out to search this type of card. Amazing. It could get more than the 5 monsters in the game with the Zen main stats. If there were more than 5 monsters with that specific stat line, it might get more play, but as it is, that is some very specific needs to summon back and shuffle back, all for a whole lot of nothing, if you ask me, to be perfectly honest. Could be better, but as it is, it's as useful as Elon's dream is for our society. It's bad. Just hating on fucking Twitter in this one. Fuck it. Pristine Planet Amirtara? I literally can't read it. They're blending together. I might need glasses. Stay tuned on future new card reports. This card's a new field spell that conflicts with the previous Manadome field spell and therefore confuses me greatly. This one can only be activated if you already control a Vsauce Starbucks and does one of 3 things if a monster you control is destroyed and sent to the graveyard. And by 3, I believe I mean 4. What is typing? It can either summon one of the destroyed monsters from your grave in defense position, or make 1 tuner on the field gain attack equal to half the attack of one of the destroyed monsters, or instead you could choose to shuffle one of the destroyed monsters into the deck to then draw a card, or as the 4th thing, you could instead shuffle this card into the deck so as to add any field spell from deck to hand. So you could instead add a playable field spell, assuming you manage to activate this thing. I don't have a whole lot to say here. You need a very specific monster to use this, and its best effect just replaces itself entirely. Because Manadome already has a field spell that has way better effects, namely a search and a revive from grave, which is the only other decent effect on this field spell. So the space looks neat and all, but you know what's cooler? Being good. New World Formation is a new trap card that depicts the Minecraft world that you had the idea of that you'd really like to build, until you start building the base of the tree trunk and realize you don't know how to build well in Minecraft at all, so you just stop playing the game for a year and a half. Oh, and it's a normal trap with 2 effects. The first will target a spell or trap in your grave that mentions Visaz Starfrost, and then set it to your field, and if it's a trap card or a quick play spell, you can activate it the turn that it's set. Neat! The second will let you banish this card from your grave to then target 3 spell or traps that mention Starfrost in your graveyard and shuffle them into the deck. Yeah, let's just agree that this is going to see as much play in Yu-Gi-Oh! As the art will be recreated in Minecraft, and call it a day, because I'm moving on to the next card. Last up for this week is New World Full of Stars, a continuous trap, again, with 2 effects. Again. The first makes it so the first time each of your monsters will be destroyed by battle while you control Visaz Starfrost, they're not, because fuck it, we just put words on cards and see what they do in the end result. That's how we got Kit Kalos, I'm sure. It's also how we get this piece of shit. And the second effect can once per turn during your end phase, provided that you control a face-up Visaz Starfrost, target and shuffle a monster from your grave into your deck, or if you control a Tuner Synchro monster, you can instead add the targeted monster from grave to hand instead. It sucks. Look, let's just get to the summary. In summary, the new tuners work well for Manadome as a deck, and then everything else is pretty well pack filler. At least that's my take. A number of these cards want you to control Visaz Starfrost specifically, and that means that you're going to either have the free summoning tuner from hand that can be used as material, or the Synchro on board. And the Synchro is pretty underwhelming, all things considered, because a generic 3300 beater of sorts does not compete with the plethora of generic level 8s and even level 10s that Manadome as a deck can make. Now, granted, these aren't all technically Manadome support, right? Only one had Manadome in the name. Everything else is just kind of coincidentally has synergy with it. It's part of the Vizaz lore. I get it. If you want to play pure Vizaz Starfrost as a deck, power to you. But as far as I'm concerned, this is at its best some decent Manadome support in the form of 2 cards, and then what I assume is just going to ultimately be a wasted secret rare slot when this set gets imported to the TCG. Somewhere in one of these. Also this week, 2 new cards from Duelist Nexus for older decks. And first up is Monarch Support. Yes, Lithium has forced Konami to make support for his pet deck, and I'm here for it. Thestalos the Shadow Firestorm Monarch is a level 10 Fire Pyro type monster with 3,000 attack and 1,000 defense. Holy shit, an actual Pyro monster. I haven't gotten one of those in like, what, a year and a half? And it's not really like Pyro, it's just Monarch Support. Oh, Pyro enthusiasts keep taking L's, apparently. This card can be tribute summoned by tributing one monster the opponent controls and one of your monsters, meaning that Monarchs now have access to their own kaiju of sorts. And if it's tribute summoned, you can banish one random card from the opponent's hand to burn them for 1,000 damage, and if you tributed it using a level 8 or higher monster, you can also banish one card on the field. Then if that banished card on the field was a fire or dark monster, the opponent will take damage equal to its level times 200. So this is a weird main decked fusion of Caius and Thestalos, and it's not supported at all by like any Monarch cards. I think except maybe Aether. I think Aether says 2,400 or more attack and 1,000 defense that it summons from the deck. Other than that, all Monarch support specify 2,400 and 1,000 or 2,800 and 1,000 for the attack and defense stats. So it cannot be searched by return. It can't get you a search by revealing it off tenacity, and reducing its level with domain is not only impossible since it doesn't have the 2,800 attack line, it also would be useless because it would become level 8 and still need 2 tributes. I suppose to work around this, they gave it the pseudo Kaijo, fuck, what is English? Pseudo Kaiju effect, but not really enough when you can't, you just have to hard draw it. The effect to rip from the hand and the burn is neat and decent, and the ability to pseudo Kaiju is cute. And the complete abandonment of any archetypal synergy is hilarious. And that's really what's going to keep it from being playable and the ultimate summary of this card, which is a shame because otherwise it looks cool as fuck. That's a cool looking card, don't tell me otherwise. Now it does also hint towards possible other fusions, namely of Mobius, Ryza, Grandmarg, and Zaborg, that's the other one. Which ones will be combined, I don't know. Dark and Fire might hint Light and Water, pop monsters and Spell and Trap, there's some synergy there. And then that would mean that Grandmarg and Ryza are one, which is, the best effect and the worst effect combined into one. I wonder what that would be. I think it'd be really neat to see a fusion of Aether and Erebus, but that's some supreme level copium, and there's nothing else to say here, because at this point I'm just talking about like, hey, wouldn't it be neat if the card they're probably gonna make gets made? Fucking hope so. And last up today is a new Trap Hole card. Wipeout Trap Hole. It's sort of like a opposite but also better version of Bottomless. Kinda, you'll see what I mean. When a monster is summoned with 1,500 or less attack, you can banish that monster's face down. So it's a more permanent form of removal, banishing face down instead of face up, and it hits low attack monsters instead of big ones, which is pretty solid. There are plenty of monsters that can be hit by this that Bottomless can't touch, although it does have the same sorts of problem that Trap Hole cards tend to have. Namely, it won't stop an on-summon effect, it has, you know, to wait, it's a when, there's complications. But that's not to say that there aren't solid uses. Against Sprite, this hits like almost every single one of their monsters. Now we all know that preventing Sprite from landing a 2 on board can sometimes win you the duel and do a bit of a later grind game if you can get there. In all honesty, I suspect that this is a good side deck card. Good for some particular matchups, but still worse than, say, the likes of Traptrix Trap Hole Nightmare or Time Space Trap Hole, you know, the ones that don't care about the attack stat at all and just say, get that shit off the field. They tend to be a little more versatile. all in all, I think this highlights to me once again how kind of crazy Rafflesia is in terms of the number of things it can interrupt and prevent depending on what trap hole cards you play. Rafflesia do be kind of nutty as a card, and really all in all, this is just proof that Traptrix has an even more solid way to apply hate to invoked decks, because it's still 2018 somewhere to some people and they're still normal summoning Alistair. Is that joke remotely funny anymore? No. It's as unfunny as it is irrelevant, but I did say it. We have to live with that. And that's all I have to say. Shoutouts to today's sponsor, the LIFD Magnetic Display, the best way to support the channel and a great way to show off that cool new Monarch card, because Lord knows it won't be being put into a deck anytime soon, so you may as well show off that cool little guy in a sick-ass display. You can save yourself 15% by applying the promo code YGOSTRATS15 at checkout, or by clicking the link in the description, and thanks as always to LIFD for the support. And thank you for watching. So that'll wrap it up for this week's new card report. Just covering some of the new cards in this one. The regular update will be out tomorrow as always. As always, I've been your host, Craig Fee, and make sure you subscribe to YGO Strats to impress your smokin' Italian wife, and so you too can be a true duelist. Vizaz Amritara is a new level 8 Light Warrior Synchro type tuner type.